All right, I'm in Arizona. I'm going to pop my doghouse off again. I'm not going to take it completely off. I just need to pull it away enough to inspect the top side of the driver's side of the engine because I've got a slight leak. It doesn't leak now. Wow. Maybe I should tighten this down before I start filming. So on a long drive, in the past, I get this little thing where when I get back home, I'll have a drip. Not like a consistent drip, just one or two drips. That's it. It's just because I've been driving at over 80 miles an hour for like 8 hours. So I popped the dog hatch. You guys saw this. I did videos recently on this, and you could clearly see when I checked that the center grommet on the valve cover on the driver's side of the engine was weeping, clear as day. So I then did another video several days later where I took everything apart. I removed the front seat here and replaced the valve cover gaskets and all the grommets on both valve cover gaskets. So we're going to check that, obviously, and then we're going to eyeball some things. There's a temperature sensor on that side of the engine, again, driver's side, that I replaced personally several years ago. Did a video on it. And we'll just see where it's coming from. We'll get into what I know it's not. I know it's not the rear main seal. I know it's not the oil pan gasket. I know all these things because those things have been done. And I could visually see with my eyeballs that you can't see. I'm getting a little agitated, I suppose. Because everybody's always making these suggestions, and I get it. A lot of you don't watch every video I do. You don't know the van as well as I do. I can see. Your eyeballs work. Most of the stuff that you're fixing, no matter what it is, you could kind of determine things by using your eyeballs. You can see it, you know. So we'll do that. I also want to show you real quick something I did with the kit here. It's a kit I typically have in the van with me all the time. I also have a torque wrench with me all the time. You just never know. And probably talk a little bit about what's been going on at the same time. So on the Astro van, to make getting the doghouse off easier, I did a whole video on this, removing the doghouse. You should watch that. Make sure you at least pull both your seats back as far as they'll go. It'll give you a little bit extra room. Of course, I have an issue here because I have the T-shift here for my four-wheel drive, and it's not super in the way, but it poses a thing, and I've got to move this generator back so the seat will slide back a little bit. I keep a long extension in that slider that'll help me access the 15-millimeter bolts on either side of that doghouse. So let me get all that out, and normally I do everything with just this little kit. However, before I left town, I was working in there, and I was using a 10 mil socket with this little adapter that works with this. It's a hex driver to square drive, 1/4 inch drive that was attached to that 10 mil, and it fell somewhere in the engine compartment. Can't find it. Fished around with a magnet, couldn't pull it out. Don't know where it is. Couldn't see it. Couldn't see it. So I can't use this setup, which means I have to break out the big tool kit to get to my larger sockets. What I mean by that is 3/8 inch drive or 1/2 inch, whatever I have here. 3/8 I think is fine, and that's what's happening. But I did something last time I opened this kit up. Let me show you. So what you see here is the tops of all these Taliente containers. I got a 1/4 inch drive socket set in here. I've got a bunch of tie downs. I like this to remove bolts, makes life a lot faster. But this was the thing, I was just throwing these sockets in here, and I had them on those little steel things that they clip on, but they always fall off, and it was a bitch fishing for them. So I finally organized them in these things, and it makes this kit a lot nicer. I also picked these up, by the way, for the Astro van in particular. These short, they're not very deep sockets, but each one is a swivel. This is pretty much a must-have. You don't need all these sizes, obviously. I should probably trim them down and just keep the ones I need, but you just never know. Man, does that make the job easier. So let me get the sockets out that I need and get this done. All right, we can see clear as day. Everything's just coming up here from the top of the valve cover again. Now, it's not the PCV valve. This breather up here, I'm not Sure what that's for. I think that's something to do with my vacuum system. Could be leaking from there. It does look like it. That's all new, so it's odd. Maybe I didn't seat it well enough. Of course, these valve cover bolts look to me like they're probably not tight enough. So nothing else going on here. That's exactly all it is. So for everybody saying it was this and that, it's everything, I'm going to wipe all this down right now and snug these suckers down. I'm not leaking from the temperature sensor over there. Nothing else. It's just right here. But it is clearly running down, and that's what the issue is. And that's what the issue was before. I want to check the other side of the motor as well. Now, hang on a second here. I back you out so you're not just staring at a close-up of my mug. I got another issue going on here. The air conditioning is not blowing cold enough. So I wanted to eyeball all this. I've been watching videos this morning and last night on topping this off, and it is recommended that you go to a pro because there's probably a leak going on. But I think for the trip, you know, just for being out here, I'm going to go ahead and go to AutoZone and get one of those cans and do it. And I understand how it works. So you basically plug in, open all your doors, run the engine, you know, shake the thing up first, connect it to the low pressure valve, and then make sure it stays in the green. And, yeah, the gauge will tell you what you need right off the bat before you even do it. So we'll give it a shot. But just so you guys understand, this van originally came with front and rear heating and air conditioning. And one of the nice things about this channel is you guys are watching. Thank you for those of you here. Not so much all the wrong comments, but you know, you can't all know it all. So when I got this and I started talking about what I was going to do to it, I knew I was going to do a build, and I did not want the heating and air in the rear because it eats up too much valuable storage space. So the heat was back underneath here. It took up a lot of space, and the air conditioning was back in that corner. It took up a lot of space. So I mentioned on the channel that I was going to replace that. And I got a guy that reached out to me, real nice guy, and Ruben, I think his name is. I forget. He had the Unicorn Astro van. I did a video on it, so look that up. Pretty cool. It had been a government vehicle. It was well maintained, had all the heavy duty parts on it. It wasn't all-wheel drive. He had that cool heavy duty idler arms on there. Thing is, did not come with rear heating and air conditioning, and he had a family, an infant son, and he wanted that. So he contacted me, and this is how crazy life is, like in the positive. He paid for us to bring our vans over to, actually I brought mine first, over to Irvin at SMG Auto on Beverly Boulevard in Los Angeles, and Irvin took all that stuff out of the back of my van, and he took the whole front section out, that, you know, the splitter, everything that works for the rear, and then he put all that into the other guy's van. and this guy paid for everything, by the way, just so you understand. He paid to have mine converted to front only. So all that stuff is new. It had been done already. It's been working fine ever since. I've never had a problem. Now, this might just be a coincidence, but when we put the compressor in up there in Vacaville, we did pull a fuse temporarily and then put that back in. The blower is working. It does blow air. And there's a 10 amp fuse up in here that we had pulled and put back. And George did all that. George was adamant at one point. He thought that it was important, and he's not wrong, that the compressor would only work when the key was turned on. Because, you know, he's dealing with failures all the time. Not in his equipment, but in the people who install it. And what happens is if you use it and you forget to turn the switch off, well, then it's on all the time. And that's not good for the compressor. It's not good for your vehicle. So he wanted to do that. And I was asking him, why are you doing this? And that's what he told me. And I said, dude, screw this. We'll put a switch in here. And every time I use the compressor, I'll open the hood and I'll just remember to turn this bitch off. Okay? Very simple. So that's what I do, you know. I'm not one of those other guys. I'll remember to turn it off. So that's why we had pulled that fuse. for a little bit. Now, I don't think that had anything to do with this, obviously, but that's the only other weird thing that happened, other than me pulling this doghouse off. Let's take a look at this side while we're here. Let's move this doghouse out of the way a little bit. And eyeball this. This all looks good. We're not leaking on this side at all. So, we're golden here, as we were before. So, it's only on one side, which is fine. Anyhow, that's what's happening. So, excuse me, I'm so pro. I could probably drink something. The point of all this is I'm probably going to go over AutoZone. I wanted to pull this first in case I needed something. Right now I know that's okay. I'm just going to tighten some bolts down there, wiggle that other thing around, see if I can get that to seat a little bit better. I don't know, man. I'll wipe it down if I can get it clean enough. I got some simple green in there. This is not the right thing to do, but I just had a thought. Everybody's gonna go, don't do this. But that, where that breather pops into that valve cover, maybe I'll wrap some electrical tape around that just to be on the, you know, just to, as a stopgap to see. Right around there. Give that a shot. It couldn't hurt. And then I could button all this back up and we're golden, and then I'll just go ahead and get that refrigerant and try to top that off for now. And again, as I keep saying, I will go back to, when I'm in LA, I'll go over to Irvin and I'll pay to have this thing checked for a leak and you know, recharge and all that other good stuff. And so I'll keep you guys apprised of that situation as it unfolds. All right, I'm gonna wipe this down now, snug down a couple nuts. Okay, adding to my frustration, I don't have a 13mm socket all of a sudden. I lost my 10mm 1/4 inch, I lost my 13 3/8, and I usually have deep and standard. Neither of those. Fortunately, I've got the swivel, so I'm going to use that. But what the? Next time I go to the swap meet, I'm going to pick up 5 13mm sockets if I can find them. And I'm going to pick up a bunch more 10s. I got 10s. Here's the crazy thing. You guys saw in an earlier video, probably from 2 years ago. I had 2 different 10mm sockets. One fit a 10mm bolt. The other one didn't. Both clearly marked 10mm. So I don't know what the hell's going on with that. Because they were both, I believe they were both American-made companies like Craftsman and Snap-on. So I don't know what's going on with that. And I need this little adapter that goes from a hex drive, like you'd put in a screw gun, to a 1/4 inch drive for your sockets. I got to buy a packet of those. It's just so I have them stashed everywhere. Because these are the things you lose, so just buy them in bulk. Just buy them in bulk. They should sell that on Amazon. But you a dozen 10mm sockets. A dozen 13mm sockets, you know? And these adapters. And we got to do something about these mosquitoes. Anyhow. Okay, I just had a thought. What do you want to bet? Let's lay odds here. What do you want to bet that my 13mm socket is attached to an extension in my roll? What do you think? I'll bet you, because I know I have it. I know it exists. There's no doubt in my mind. Let's see. Bingo. Bingo. B-I-N-G-O. There we go. Disregard everything I said 45 seconds ago. Okay, so I did all that. Well, that's peeling off. I put a little electrical tape on there, which is probably not the right thing to do, but I'm just doing that as a test for myself. I wiped it up. I find that simple green is really great for cutting grease. You can see my paper towels here. That's all that came off this. You know, not a lot here, really. That's what I wiped off the top of the valve cover. That's it. So it's, you know, it's not like, and maybe, you know, maybe this is my fault for making some of you feel like this was a big deal. I parked, I had 4 drips. That's all it was. It's not a puddle of oil. Just 4 little drips there. And actually it was 3. And then I think the next day there was one. That's all it is. It's just these long drives. Now, I didn't like really crank on these things. I got them snug when I installed it. I didn't use the torque wrench. But here's the thing. I'm not a mechanic, so don't do what I do. Just saying. I've replaced the valve cover gaskets in every single vehicle I've ever owned. I think that's pretty accurate, pretty close. 90% of every vehicle I've ever owned, go all the way back to high school. My 71 Dodge Dart V8 318, I had to replace the valve covers. I don't know how it happened, but they were bent up and whatnot, and they were leaking all the time for some reason. I still remember going to Route 9 in New Jersey down there in Bayville and going to the pick apart there and getting new valve covers from, I had to go through and eyeball and make sure I got the right ones. And I remember doing that. I was like 17 years old, did all that myself, figured it out. It's not brain surgery. And every time I've put valve covers on and replaced the gaskets, back then it was cork gaskets, okay? And all the new stuff they got today. And they didn't leak after that. Never had them leak before. So what I did here was I was able to get a little bit of a turn on those back too. Now, it's possible that when I put them on and I snugged them, that I over snugged them, and that's the reason that they leak. So I don't know. The bottom line though is this is not a big deal. It's not a big deal. If I did something wrong, I'll talk to Irvin and he'll go, hey, here's what you want to do. And if I've got to pop those bolts out and pluck out those grommets and put new grommets in the top, those orange grommets there, okay, no big deal. I don't think it's leaking from where the gasket meets the head. I don't think that's happening. So, you know, if I got to get new grommets there, that's not the end of the world. All right? And we'll know how it goes. I'm going to have to get underneath. I did wipe it down a little bit when I parked. I'll have to get underneath there and wipe it down again. I'm probably not going to screw with this anymore until after I get back to LA. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but I might be cutting this trip short. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Yesterday with family here at the house was a little much in the morning. Worked out later in the day, but it's a lot. So I was going to save it for Sunday night chat. I will say that later in the day, I spent the afternoon with my niece, who's 10. I'll include a picture here at the end. And gosh, I really like hanging out with this kid. I mean, she's like a little adult at 10 years old. It was her birthday. I missed it a couple weeks ago. So I found this really cool, what I thought was a cool purse. It's purple with black. It's got black straps and zippers and stuff on it. It's kind of punk rock. And yesterday she was dressed like, you'll see, like a rock and roll star. She's got a really good sense of style for 10 years old. Blows me away. It's not what you're here for, I know. And I took her to the store. I gave her some money with the purse, you know. And she, she wanted to spend it. And she got her first set of high heels yesterday. And she was so adult about it. She tried them on. She wasn't sure. They weren't cheap. They're like $78. That's a lot for a pair of kids' shoes, you know. And she's like, I said, don't buy it right now. We can walk around. You think about it. She took me through the mall to these girly places. I'm holding her purse. She's looking around. And I sat down in this chair at this place. And, it was really funny. And then at one point she comes over to me. She goes, okay, I'm going to get the shoes. I've decided. I said, okay. And we got there to get the shoes, but I bought them for her anyhow. So she didn't have to spend her birthday money. But then we went to another place where she spent most of her birthday money on supplies so she can make her own slime. Just figure I'll leave you with that. Have a good day. Be good. Be good people. And I'm trying my best to be all the time. It's not always so easy. I'll catch you in the next one.